Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to Central Alberta Real Estate Investor Network event. I feel like I need an inhaler as I say all that. It's a bit of a mouthful. But it's so good to have each and every one of you out here. My name's Andrew Rocha. I am one of the bank managers for ATB Financial, and I'm also a real estate investor, like probably many of you that are here. So I'm so glad that each and every one of you can be here. Bryce Kander is with us. He is the founding father of Central Alberta Real Estate Investor Network. He's been working on the beard for quite some time as a founding father. But Bryce, what are you looking forward to for tonight?
Well, I'm excited to learn about garage suites, tiny houses, and how most properties can now be turned into a duplex. So the goal of this group is to make you wealthy. Not for the sake of being wealthy, but it's so that you can be so wealthy that you can give away what you don't need. So thank you for coming.
Yes, it's going to be so good. And earlier, I overheard Bryce talking about garage suites, tiny homes, all those sort of things, and how with the new bylaw changes, it has the potential to make certain lots in Red Deer quite a bit more valuable. And so I'm very curious about what those value adds are going to be and how that can affect each and every one of us here.
So my house, for instance, did not go up in value because of the new bylaw changes, because the guy next door to me can do the exact same thing. So if the cost is the same to build the property anywhere, if you can have a property that has a view or on a park or something, building that garage suite on that property is more valuable than my house would be.
Right. Which is pretty incredible. And then I think for myself, I have a pretty large family. We're constantly adding more kids to the mix. We haven't figured it all out. But I know that we have a basement suite and we can't use that space. And as we have more and more children, we need to figure out where to put them. So I'm really looking forward to the tiny houses so I can send my kids out there and keep renting the basement. It's going to be great.
I'm also excited for people like Graham who are bootstrapping a garage suite. He's able to do it very affordably, and his cash flow is going to be insane. And he's going to have two incomes coming from the garage, and then when he moves out of the other house, he'll have cash flow.
Yeah, there's so many great opportunities to be talked about tonight. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Bryce, who do we need to thank tonight?
So Christy from the city of Red Deer has come and she's going to be presenting for us. So thank you, Christy, for coming. And then Dion Weeb, thank you for doing the videography and the photos. And Andrew, thank you for helping host.
And Bryce, thank you.
My pleasure.
You look great. There's just so many sparks flying up here. The connection is just unreal. But for those that attended last events that we've had, I've always wanted to give a little bit of a tip of how you can lean in and get a little bit more out of it. So Bryce, do you remember the first tip that I gave?
If you're happy and you know it, let your face show it.
Yes. So if you're happy, show it on your face. It's going to help us as presenters that we want to actually lean in. The other thing is just to give some words of encouragement. So like maybe this side of the room goes, ooh. And this side goes, ah. And everyone says, Andrew, you look so incredible. Yeah, those things are going to help us all throughout the night. So thank you. Keep the compliments coming. But tonight's quick tip is about 50% of what you hear within an hour, you're going to forget. So you're probably praying, let me remember what Bryce said and let me forget everything Andrew said. And that's okay. But within a week's time frame, you will forget 90% of everything that you heard tonight. So what I would recommend is write some notes. Whether you have pen and paper, you have your phone on you, type things out. That is actually going to help it stick in because you're not only hearing it, you're writing it down, and then you're visually getting it. So those three different methods are going to help you get the most out of tonight. So I'd leave you with that. But Bryce, you said that we have some guests coming up. Who is our first guest that we can introduce to the stage?
So it's pretty awesome that the city of Red Deer is coming to teach us about the new bylaw changes. So Christy's coming to teach us about the new changes. She's the senior planner for the city of Red Deer. So everyone welcome Christy.
Thanks, Bryce. Okay, so as Bryce mentions, my name's Christy. I'm a senior planner with the city of Red Deer. I've had the privilege of working with the city for about 9 years now in the planning departments. Most recently, I've had the privilege of working on the zoning bylaw project, specifically managing the residential portion of that. So looking at the residential zones and the regulations associated with residential districts. With me today, I do have a couple of colleagues from the city. I have Debbie Hill, a Senior Development Officer, During the question portion of this evening, she might come up and join me specifically for questions regarding the regulations and development permit applications and processing. I also have Bree Fitzpatrick from our Land and Economic Development Department, and she will be here to assist with any questions regarding the Timberlands North neighborhood or just city land in general. And last but not least, I have our planning intern, Carmen Wertanen here, and she's just gonna be taking some notes for us so that when we go back to the city, we can review and see how we can better our presentation. So before I get into what the regulations are for backyard suites, duplexes, and house suites, I just wanted to give you just a little bit of a brief learning on what the zoning bylaw is. So the zoning bylaw is a bylaw that regulates development for all properties within the city. So both private properties and city-owned properties. It's legislated by the government of Alberta that every municipality would have a land use bylaw, or as Red Deer calls it, a zoning bylaw. As you can imagine, because it regulates all property, it's the city's largest bylaw. And it regulates really everything regarding or associated with development. So it will regulate what you can have on your property, so a house in a residential zone. And then it will also regulate the types of requirements for those, for that use. So it'll say how high your building can be, how far back it has to be from the property setbacks, how many parking spaces you have, how much landscaping space you need. So Council has approved a new zoning bylaw that came into effect June of 2024. The previous one was improved, I think, back in the 70s, so it was quite old, and it needed a really thorough review. So we were tasked with reviewing the land use bylaw and updating the regulations. City Council had provided a framework for us to follow in creating a new bylaw. So some of the things were to reduce red tape. So within that, we're to getting rid of unnecessary regulations, to streamline the process, as well as just to simplify the development within the city. Another one was to improve customer service. So to make the development process easier and quicker, allow more options for pre-development meetings, and to provide clarity on what people need to submit when they're submitting an application. One of the other pieces of the framework was to make the bylaw easier to use. The bylaw is a legal document. It's typically written in legal language. It's kind of hard to understand, even as staff. Often we'll look at a regulation and we're like, what does this actually mean? So we've tried to scale back the legal lingo and replace it with just common everyday language. And then the last bit that council had tasked us with was to respect the community. So to ensure that there's community consultation through the process, as well as focus on community needs such as housing. So in terms of zones, so the land use bylaw or zoning bylaw is made up of lots of different zones. So each parcel within the city has an attached zone to it. So on the right, you can see we have part of the RL zone, the residential low density zone. Within each zone, you have the key information or the purpose or the intent of the zone, what the zone is intended for. And then we have a list of permitted and discretionary uses. These are the different uses that can be considered for development on the property. So for instance, you'd see a permitted use is a house. So what a permitted use means is that if you meet all the regulations within the bylaw, the development authority has to issue you a permit for that use. So if you were wanting to construct a house, you met all the regulations that the city requires for a house, the development authority would then have to grant you a permit for that. We also have discretionary uses, which are uses that can be considered, but not necessarily, you're not totally 100% going to get a permit for that. There's other considerations that will impact whether or not a permit is issued. It's based on site specifics and impact to surrounding properties. So specific to suites and duplexes, You'll see in this table here, we have all of the residential zones on top. And then we have backyard suites, house suites, and duplexes. So D is discretionary use, so a permit maybe will be issued, and a house suite is, or you'll see a P, which is a permitted use where a permit would be issued. Previous to the new zoning bylaw, house suites were typically a discretionary use, meaning that you might be able to get a permit for it. Now with them being a permitted use, you're more likely to get a permit, so long as you meet all of the regulations. Backyard suites were previously only allowed in the Timberlands North neighborhood as a permitted use. We've since expanded that to allow them as a discretionary use in all of the residential zones. So now you could have a discretionary use in any residential zone. And duplexes previously were only allowed in 2 of our zones, and now there's more development potential because we're allowing them in 4 of our zones. So just to give a little bit more information on each of those 3 things, a house suite is basically what the name suggests. So another suite located within a house. You might recognize them as a secondary suite or a basement suite, but it's accessory to the main dwelling within the house. Only a house or a detached dwelling can have a house suite. You cannot have a house suite in a duplex or a townhouse suite, or unit, sorry. So some of the rules. These are, so as I mentioned, the bylaw's 500 pages long. There's lots of rules. These are the highlights, I want to say, for house suites. In terms of density, you can only have 1 backyard suite or 1 house suite per site. So if you already have a house suite, you cannot apply for a backyard suite. In addition to that, a maximum of 15% of the houses in a neighborhood can have a suite. So not every house can have a suite. So there is capacity in most of the neighborhoods within Red Deer for additional suites. But there are a handful where we've already maxed out on suites. In terms of location, you have to be on a corner site or a site with a lane or a site on a road with more than 1 entrance or exit. So if you're at the end of a cul-de-sac with no lane behind you, that's most likely your only instance where you wouldn't be allowed or where you wouldn't meet that criteria for a suite. And it has to remain on the same title as the main unit. So you can't try and, you wouldn't be able to subdivide it from the main dwelling unit. You do require additional parking for house suites. It's 1 parking stall for the first 2 bedrooms and then 2 parking stalls for any additional bedrooms. The floor area has to be less than the floor area of the main unit. And it can be located on any story within the dwelling. So typically we have them in the basements, but if you have a 3-story home and want it in the 3rd story, go ahead, that's fine. In terms of just a couple of other regulations, the built form of the house has to look like a house. It's not intended to look like a duplex. And it has to have its own exterior entrance, either on the side or the rear. There is a possibility of having it in the front, so long as it's there's a separate entrance area once you get into the house. So backyard suites, the city previously called these carriage homes. As mentioned, they were only allowed in the Timberlands North neighborhood previously. You might also hear them be named laneway home or garage suite, garden suite, that type of thing. Basically, it's an additional dwelling unit in another building on the same site as a house. So again, it can only be located in a house, not a duplex or on the same site as a townhouse unit. As the picture suggests, it can be incorporated into the garage. That's typically what we have in the Timberlands North neighborhoods. You'll see the suite above the garage. It does not have to be that, though. You can just have a suite on the ground level, and it doesn't have to be attached to a garage. Again, some of the key rules, a lot of these are similar to house suites, but I'll go through them. So again, 1 suite per site. It doesn't matter if it's backyard or house suites, and maximum of 15% of the houses in a neighborhood can have a suite. There is an exception for this. If you are in the Timberlands North neighborhood, there is no density cap on the number of basements or on the number of backyard suites. And that was really just because in the old bylaw, we also didn't have a density cap for that neighborhood. In terms of location, they have to be located on a corner site or a site with a lane. And then it has to be located on the side yard or the rear yard of a property. Again, it has to remain on the same title as the house. So even though it's a separate building, you can't subdivide it off the main lot. It has to remain on the same parcel as the house. In terms of servicing, it has to be connected to municipal services through the house. So you won't get a separate service connection from the city. It also has to be built or placed on a foundation, and it can't be constructed on wheels or capable of being fitted on wheels. So it can't be an RV, and it can't be a manufactured home. In terms of duplexes, I feel like you all know what a duplex is, but it's basically a residential building containing 2 separate dwelling units, each with their own separate entrance. In terms of configuration, the city, it doesn't really matter to us. It can be up, down, side to side, back to front, doesn't matter. And both units can be the same size. A duplex is different in that both units can be on the same property, or they can be subdivided onto separate properties. So each unit would have a separate title. And then each unit would also require 2 parking stalls. So, in terms of more information, the first QR code will get you to the zoning bylaw. If you know what your zone is, that will be really helpful and useful because you can then go and see what rules apply. As well as there's an email address and a phone number there too for additional information. The second one will take you to the residential permit information page. And there's also a couple of emails and phone numbers there too regarding or available there for whatever your questions or concerns would be. And then finally, my last slide. So as I mentioned, the new bylaw that we have in place now was really just phase 1 of the zoning bylaw project. It primarily looked at the residential zones, commercial zones, and industrial zones. Phase 2 is going to be looking at the other zones not covered in that. So we'll be looking at public service types of zones, as well as like parks and recreation, as well as general regulations such as parking and regulations for specific uses, for uses listed within the bylaw. That is expected 2025 to make its way in front of council. And then we do have another phase after that, and that will essentially cover everything not previously touched. If you're looking for more information, you can check out our website at engage.reddeer.ca. That will take you to basically phase 2 of the bylaw project, and you can subscribe to updates because we're always looking for more people to become interested. Believe it or not, people generally, lots of people don't care until they go to develop something. So you can email us at planning@reddeer.ca, and you can subscribe to our updates there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. That was incredible. Some great knowledge there. Perfect. I'll pass that on. Thank you very much. As you can see up on the screen here, no, that's all right. 222. There we go. If you have questions for our Q&A tonight, you can text me. This is my cell phone number. So please just text me questions regarding tonight, not just about me, what my hair care routine is, nothing like that. Questions regarding tonight, please send me any messages about that. And we want to make sure that we're going through and answering questions that are going to be impactful for the entire group. If you have questions that are more focused on your specific needs, that might be why you would go and reach out to the website, email addresses, things of that sort. But anything related tonight, give me a text and I'd be happy to ask and answer those questions. But without further ado, I want to introduce our next speaker, Penny Kander. I've worked with Penny on tons of deals, and something that I love is what Christy was sharing with us was that knowledge. And now, knowledge is so powerful, but it's truly the connections that help move you forward. And I just was recently working on a deal, and Penny sent me a message that I have a house for you. I know that this is going to be exactly what your needs are. Let's move forward. I was like, okay, I trust Penny. I know that she has my back and she's taking care of me. And that's really the power that's there, of having people that are good connections that are looking out for your interests. So I want to introduce Penny to the stage.
First of all, I wish every client was like Andrew. So anybody who has excuses, I think I used this one last time, but it's so perfect, I have to tell you. So I was doing a live video, and Andrew's wife was literally delivering a child at the moment, and they still bought the house in between contractions. So when I say it's a good deal, you better move. Has anybody here read the book Acre of Diamonds? Aha, Farai back there. You need to connect with that guy. So in this book, it was written by Russell Conwell, and it's the story of a Parisian farmer. So he got in his mind that he wanted to be a diamond miner. So he literally sold his house to finance his dreams. He traveled around the world, and he actually lost his life doing it. So he lost his life and he lost his land. Ironically, the land that he was sitting on turned out to be the largest diamond mine in the entire world. So the idea is to use what you have. Even Henry Ford started building his cars in his own farm. Brian and Joe started Airbnb. There was a convention, and all the hotels were full. So they decided, hey, we got one blow-up mattress. Let's go buy some more blow-up mattresses, and we're going to rent them out. They called it Air, Bed, and Breakfast. So that's the initial Airbnb. So, let's look at our options. So let's look over your fence, look into your backyard, and see what you can have come up in your backyard. Oh, I know her. It's a really good book. You should go online and buy that. The luckiest person I know. It'll make you laugh and cry. So number one, garage conversions. Bryce talked about one of his clients phoned him up, and you got to talk about early adopters. So you people sitting here are early adopters, because as our lovely speaker said, there's still only 15% available in each subdivision to do this. So you can't kick back and go, I don't know, maybe 3 years from now I'll think about it, and then you turn around and go, oh, what? My subdivision's full? I have this giant yard that I now cannot use except for mowing? That's not going to be fun. So if you hear something, you need to take advantage of it, like Andrew did. He knew there were some bylaw changes in Sylvan Lake. He bought a place. He put it into the bylaws that he could now do Airbnb. He turned around and he made a lot of money. Tens of thousands of dollars just by paying attention, just by going to things like this, just by getting education. So with the garage conversions, Bryce had a guy phone him up. This guy, this is what you call your first, he's probably the first guy to apply. He has a garage. He says to Bryce, he's got the plans and everything. He sends them over to Bryce. And he says, I'm going to build a 2-bedroom suite in my garage. I'm like, great. I said, Bryce, how much is it going to cost this guy to do this? He said, about $80,000. I said, okay, well, he's doing most of the labor. So I always like to under-promise and over-deliver. I'm also can make mistakes at math, so if I missed anything, somebody could point it out. So I figure $120,000, 4.9%, there's your payment. You could rent it out long-term. Your return on investment is 8.82%. I like to always add in the average monthly increase. And what I mean by that is, so you've got cash flow, but every month your mortgage is getting smaller, right? So what I do is I take a 5-year, somebody's going, no, they don't. They hardly go down at the first, do they? They go down 5 cents. So they go down. So I do an average. Okay, so over the first 5 years, what is that average pay down? And I added it to your return on your investment. Or you could do Airbnb. We love Airbnb. So you're going to need a little bit extra money. So you're going to need another $15,000 because you're going to need to buy furniture, all the things that go with Airbnb. So we do 75% occupancy. So 25% of the time it could be sitting there empty. Now my wife Darlene is really good at Airbnb. She was sitting at 92% occupancy. So if you want any answers on Airbnb, talk to her. She's standing at the back because she gave her seat away. So less expenses. So your return on your investment, that's pretty great, right? 17.17%. And your average monthly increase is $1,945. That's like a job. A lot of people work all week, all month for that. Garden suites and garages. So we actually got a quote from a builder, $300,000. Now it's nice and it's sexy and it has like a deck on the top because it was going to look over a park. Right? So at 4.89, you're looking at $1,834. You could rent it out long term because, as you know, we need millions, literally millions of houses over the next few years. I do. Thanks. My son's going click. Yes, feel free to have me move on. Yeah, so you could do the garden suite, $300,000. So your return on your investment sucks. It's 2.26%. But when you're doing a garden suite, maybe it's not just for money. You know, maybe it's for my mom's moving from Saskatchewan. She needs a place to live. Houses are expensive. You're going to have to look after her anyway, so why not get her to finance the garage suite in the back? You could even put a lift in it for when she gets old. So the return on investment isn't the only thing to consider when you're looking at that particular option. But also, think of the increase in value. When you go to sell that thing, you have 2 houses. That's pretty great. A baby. There's a baby here. Sorry, I get distracted by babies. So your return on investment, if you did Airbnb, is slightly better. Not a lot, 3.97%. But you're paying down on a larger mortgage. So that's pretty great. You're still making just about $1,000 a month by doing Airbnb on a garden suite with the garage. So I always add in the garage. So you're renting out the upstairs, but you're also going to rent that garage. I love garages. You know, I sell houses, but I get really excited about garages. So putting a garage on any property is just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. You can rent it to your neighbor. You can rent it to the guy down the street. It doesn't matter. Everybody wants your garage. Basement suites. These are some pretty great numbers. So $60,000 for a basement suite. Your return on investment is 20.86%. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, see this one. I'm going to build this one. Isn't that nice? Would you like to build that in your house? Yeah. Ooh, and ah, ooh, thank you. Or, you know, like in older areas where you do have big houses, you may not want to put something that's like, that doesn't look anything like the house at the front. You try and find something that is complementary. Or if it's an old crappy house, maybe you go back and you put this one in, you tear down the crappy house because you want the sexy one instead. All right, so your basement suite. Your return on investment, 20.86%. What's a GIC getting, people? Our ATB, what is it? 5. Every time I go to another company, there's a company on the main floor and they have a chart of what their money's paying. And yeah, 5. I think it was like 5.06. That's nothing to get excited about, is it? Now, 20.86%. Most people in here, who would, if I said to you, you've got a lot of money, but I can give you 20%, who's going to give me their money? All right, got some money here. See, everybody knows these hands going up because we may have offers for you at 20%, so stand by. So Airbnb, if you Airbnb it, and my wife said, these numbers are low. That's okay. I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver, as I mentioned. So she thinks for a 2-bedroom you could get more, but let's say we just do the $100. 75% occupancy, so 25% it's sitting there. Less your income, your cash flow is $1,387. Your return on investment is 22.2%. Your average monthly pay down is $1,520 for a $60,000 investment. Isn't that great? So our most profitable is, and in the winning position, basement suites. And again, you can only do 15%, so you need to pay attention. If you want to do a basement suite, get after it, because like West Park, I think, is full. Is there any other places that are full? Riverside is full? Oh, interesting. So, and that could easily change overnight. Like in some areas, there's just like 4 left or 3 left. So you need to, you can go online or maybe send a message to these lovely ladies and see what's the vacancy, or just go and apply, right? You could get your approval. You don't have to use it. Second place, garage conversions at 17.14, and then garden suites with the garages at 9.75. Now, the one thing to remember, as I said, basically the moral of the story is, what do you see in your backyard? Like, which of these things would you like? Would you like to have a cool, I want that one. There was actually another one. That one. That's actually the one I want. I have the perfect lot. I did a video on it this afternoon. So if you follow me, you can see what the lot looks like, and the view is there. And I live close. That could be good. That could be bad, depending. We have really good coffee, so you can come over. So like I said, the second part is cash flow isn't everything. If you build these units and you can have your kids live there, you like your kids, right? Like, I like my kid. He could stay all the time. Not everybody's as attached to their kid as I am. They may want him in the back. They're like, you're going to live here forever till you're 50? Great. I'm building you a house at the back. It increases your value. It keeps your, from not killing them. This is always positive. Or, me back to my favorite garages. What if we just built one of these? And we rented out the upstairs, and it paid for the garage that we wanted, because we couldn't talk anybody into, we really need a garage, do we? No, we really need a garage, do we? Sure. But if I can get you a garage for free, can I build it? And the wife or the husband, whoever's the holdout, says, free? Sure. So you may just get a garage for free. So look in your backyard and find your own acre of diamonds.
Thank you very much, Penny. That was awesome. Again, if there's any questions, please make sure that you are texting into that number there. I can feel the room is starting to get a little antsy, and the introverts are probably already eyeing out the door of, okay, when is my moment to go watch The Office and get into my cozy pajamas? But we have a special surprise at the end. So please make sure that you stay to the end, because I truly think that there's quite a few people in this room that are going to gain a lot of value from this. But our next guests are Pastor Brian and Carissa Patterson. I have known them for quite some time. Pastor Brian is the founder and director of Home of Hope, and Carissa is the operations manager. I've actually had the opportunity to travel with Africa to Pastor Brian. Funny story, I was once on the back of a motorcycle with multiple pigs in a pillowcase, driving through the mud, not too sure where on earth we're going. It felt like a 90-foot incline, like a 90-degree incline as we're going up these hills, and then actually delivering pigs to these families who are starting these pig farms and doing micro business, so that way they can provide for themselves, provide for their family, and create a great economy for their entire community. And that is just a fraction of what these people are doing. And so like Bryce was talking about earlier, yes, it's great that we have these opportunities and we can build up wealth, but it gets to a point where, okay, what do we do with it? And we want to give you ideas of what you can do once you have enough, and what does it look like next in your journey. So please welcome up Pastor Brian and Carissa Patterson.
Thanks very much. Isn't Andrew doing a great job? He's a fun guy to travel with, for sure. We've been a few different countries.
Check.
Works. I grew up in Olds, Alberta all my life, and I grew up in Alberta all my life, and been in Red Deer 40 years. And I love living in Red Deer, and this is my wonderful daughter, and Carissa, and we have some other wonderful people here today. Our son is in the front row cheering us on.
And my mother-in-law.
17 years ago, my life changed when I found out that Rwanda had the highest number of orphans and children without parents in the world. And, I'd be watching the hockey game, and you'd see a commercial coming up for World Vision, these children that are starving, and I'd always flip the channel and was never really a compassionate guy at all. But when I went to Rwanda 17 years ago and you see starving children right in front of your face, it completely changed my life. And I didn't plan on it, but I just started helping some children, and I came home, and some friends said, "How did your trip go?" And I just started crying and telling them some stories of the children I saw, and this kind of accidentally grew into, in 17 years now, we're helping thousands and thousands of children. And we just, Chris pushed me a bit, and we wrote a book called Meant for More when I was 48 years old. This was the new chapter of my life, and this is a wonderful book, and every cent of it goes to help children. We got 162 color pictures, and many of them are stories of children that we rescued and where they're at 10 years and 17 years later. But it's also got some chapters in it where you can discover the next chapter of your life. One of the stories in the book is the first 4 children that changed my life. I was speaking in a church, and I asked the pastor, "Do you know any children that are in need?" Which is a stupid question, like, duh. And he just walked me a couple blocks down this little pathway in rural Rwanda. And I saw these 4 children who just lost their father to AIDS, and the mother was dying, and the doctor said she would be dead in 1 week. And these 4 children were helpless. They had no food. And this older daughter right there, you can see the look on her face. Rwanda was the #1 nation in the world of children raising children, especially after the genocide and the AIDS epidemic. And so we've started right then 17 years ago with sponsoring 20 children every month, and it just grew and grew and grew. And one of the good stories is 15 years later, this is the success story of these 4 children and what they look like today. Isn't that wonderful? These 4 children I put on my personal fridge, the little sponsor card on the fridge, and we'd have people over to our house, and they would walk over to our fridge and say, I want to sponsor that child, and took it right off my fridge. And then another one, so the one boy at the far end, I kept him in our bedroom after that. So we kept him, and he's graduated from...
The card. He kept the card in.
Yeah. The sponsor card. I hid the sponsor card. Yeah, we're not importing children. And he's graduated with a bachelor now and helping our Home of Hope projects in Rwanda today.
How cool is that? It's like it's just a circle, right? We help, and he's helping now. Another story I wanted to highlight is, it might be a little shocking, but this is one of my favorite stories that are in this book. Favorite story is kind of a loose word, but impactful story is this little baby was, I think, the first baby that our team found thrown away in the garbage, still with his umbilical cords attached. And so his name is Samuel, a sponsor. Somebody is crying, and I'm trying not to look. The sponsor named him Samuel. And that's just something that we do, is we rescue babies just like this. And sponsors are able to help with financially, but also to name the baby, which is really something special.
We have a waiting list if someone wants to sponsor a baby that's rescued. Even we've had 5 in the last month rescued. And even my son right here, when he's a single man, he sponsored this little girl that was thrown away in the garbage, and now she's 12 years old, and they got a bike, and she's in school, and it's just really, really impactful. What you can, like was saying, you start making some money, and you can use that money to help other people and give back.
Yes, and another story is a boy named Jaden. He was abandoned and left for days, and he was actually sucking the skin off of his fingers. He was so hungry. So we rescued him in time. That's him on the left there in 2011. And then on the right is 2022, just a few years ago. He was there, and I told him to redo the second picture there, just to try to pick him up. He's getting big, but he's alive today because we have sponsors who are able to help these babies.
Babies were thrown away in the 30-acre dump of the city of Nairobi. And we would often find these babies too late because of animals that would be trolling the the dump, and we heard these terrible, sad stories, and we wondered how we can help. And we came up with the idea of, we put up 3 great big billboards at the entrances of this 30-acre dump saying, please don't throw away your babies. And people just started to phone, and we've rescued hundreds and hundreds of people. Many of them are, 14, 15-year-old young girls that have been raped in slums of 700,000 people. And they come, and we help disciple them in our church, and with microloans that was mentioned. And many of those teenage girls can take back their baby when they have enough money to provide for them. So we started a Dream Center building where we now have 60 babies that we're trying to nurture and bring back to health. We have an incubator. Even a lot of the babies that are thrown away are malnourished because the mother lived in a slum that is, it's just one of the worst places in the world. Seeing a slum of 700,000 people, and there's been a number of people that are here tonight that have been on a trip to go see their sponsored child and see what we're talking about.
I wanted to show you some pictures of 3 of the babies that were just rescued. This is Imani Joy. This is an eye that's cut off here. Imani Joy, Werner, and Hannah. These are 3 kids that were just rescued and need sponsors. This little boy, Werner, he was abandoned by his mother and was rescued from the slum at 1 week old, weighing 6 pounds. And so, and then Imani Joy, she was rescued from the slum as well at 5 a.m. by just a good Samaritan who found this baby left on the side of the road. So these are some of the stories that we need to stand in the gap for them and help them.
If you're interested, we have a table as you go out today, and you can look. We have about 20 or 25 children that need rescuing, but the most important needs are these children that are just recently rescued, and it takes a lot of money to care for rescued children.
Yeah, 24-hour care.
And, sometimes the government doesn't care for the babies thrown away, but as soon as you start rescuing them, then they have all the rules and regulations. And we have to have, for 60 children, we need 15 caregivers, and we have to have a full-time medical professional, a nurse on the property, plus a foster care person that's going to help place the children in family settings and also family units. So it just takes a lot of money. So we've never turned down any babies, and we've also met with the highest child welfare in the country of Kenya. We are recognized as the #1 baby rescue center with a handwritten letter from the leader of the nation.
And we have that letter on our website if you are interested in looking for it. It's homehope.ca, and then it's our Dream Center on the tab.
This is the Dream Center that was all funded by people living in Red Deer. And this is where we care for about 60 babies. I was just there in November last year and also in May this year. And one of my favorite things of what I do when I go to these nations is go and hugging these babies, because I have 14 grandchildren. So it just kind of fits right in. They're part of my international grandchildren.
So just to clarify, this is not an orphanage that we built. Our goal is not for those babies to live there forever. Our goal is to move them into family units, we are calling them. We're making families with these kids. They're becoming siblings with a mother, or into Kenya families, integrated into the families.
Yeah.
What do you have? Oh, and I found this picture today of Bryce when he was in Africa making balloons. Do you remember?
You're very good at blowing up balloons. He's been with me in a number of nations as well, Bryce. Thank you for inviting me tonight.
Where are we? I can't see it, so I have to step forward. So these are many of the kids that are at the Dream Center. Obviously, it's not all of them, 60, but just to give you an idea of what it's like there.
One of the things that we like doing is you can sponsor a child and then apply to go on a team to go meet your child and spend a day with them or longer. And we have children that are how do I say it? One of the reasons the children are thrown away in the garbage is because they have disabilities. There's a child that has cerebral palsy. Another child was deaf and mute. Another child is Down syndrome. And so, they find out there's a problem in their child and they throw the child away. And we have always taken these children in, and we thank the sponsors. This is Dan Weeb, a businessman from Olds, and he sponsors a bunch of kids, and he loves going over there and trying to hold. He could not hold all of them now, but another great story is so you can apply to go on a team, especially there's good people in Red Deer in Central Alberta, right? Yeah.
Daniel believes so. So I was talking about on our website, there's that letter, but here, this is a Facebook group that we have that the staff actually post almost a daily video of what's happening that day and updates of what's happening. So you can feel free to scan that and you can join it. Of course, it's free. It's just a Facebook group, but it's really awesome. All the videos that they post and the pictures. It's just wonderful just to see. And it's so fun. They're so cute.
And Chris also has us on Instagram and the TikTok.
Well, some of our posts are,
TikTok,
but this is
the dark world
only
of
place
TikTok.
on Facebook for this one that they post.
So we were saying a lot of the children get placed into family units one by one in Kenya. We don't adopt internationally. And then sometimes we place them in family units of 6 or 7 kids, and we're hoping that a mother will want their child back again. So these family units are a little more flexible than putting a child where there's maybe no hope of the parents ever coming back. They get placed like one-on-one into family units. And this is the one family that has 3 children with disability. That is our latest one, 7 family units right now. And this is the one that's very tear-jerking in a sense, because, you know, some future parents come by and they just go by the Down syndrome, they go by the cerebral palsy, and they'll take that little pretty girl. And so there's kind of probably very little hope that they'll ever be sponsored one into a family. So these are great family units. And Diana is our Dream Center leader and has been with us for 17 years.
And one of the hardest things to raise is actually shocking. It is the caregivers who are caring for these babies. That is the hardest funds that we raise. And they are wonderful. They take care of the kids. They love on them. If you go to that Facebook page, you can see just how much they're loving on those kids. And so if you are interested, we do have, where did that go? Do you have it? Go ahead.
Same, you can have a sponsor. You can sponsor $50, $100. We need 300 Canadian for each lady, which is a minimum wage that the government puts on. But, you know, that is very, you know, for the amount of work they do and cuddling babies. You know what it's like to cuddle a baby and they start crying. You try your best and then you give it to the parents as a grandparent. I tried. But when you're in a family with maybe 15 rescued babies in one area, one baby cries, they all cry. These ladies are tremendous ladies and tremendous. A lot of them have 5 or 7 children themselves, and it's a great thing. And if you're interested in helping in our biggest present need, it's sponsorship for those wonderful ladies.
Right, so this is how you can get involved. You can either sponsor a child, you can sponsor a caregiver that he mentioned, or you can donate to one of our other projects. So this is not the only thing we do. We do help kids in, I think, 7 different ways. There's animals that we do. There's feeding programs that we are able to feed a child for just $1, and we have weekly feeding programs of about 6,000 children. Weekly. That's not monthly. That's weekly.
We have 50 projects in Congo, which is one of the poorest nations in the world if you search on Google. And the refugee camps of Congo are just hideous. The slums of Nairobi and the Congo refugee camps where there's war. If you search Goma, Congo right now, there's 40,000 rebel soldiers surrounding the city of Goma. And people are running for their lives and they're ravaging villages, and the refugee camps are just exploding. And we're trying to help thousands of more children. Even a health card for $6 will help a child get medicine for an entire year. But if they don't have that health card, they could die of something like malaria, which is preventable and treatable with the right medicine.
Well, I was just going to say, we actually started the feeding program because we had so many kids that we needed to get sponsored, and we didn't have enough sponsors, but we can feed them. That is very important. They just were so hungry.
So as we just wrap up here tonight, these are just some of the different areas. Andrew talked about animal projects,
Yeah.
And you can come on a team and hold a goat. They like goats better than pigs because they get too stinky for some reason. Then they can deliver goats. Melanie Mitchell at the back has delivered goats on the back of a motorcycle. Yeah, and you have too. So there's animal projects, just a simple animal that can multiply. And, you know, I was raised on a farm, so We had 400 pigs, so I can train a little bit on how to raise pigs.
Business, teaching them how to like raise money themselves, self-sufficient is the goal for that one.
The best way to help children, if they have a mother who can work, is microloans. And we have hundreds and hundreds of ladies on microloans now. One of the best projects is we make a food cart out of tin, what is it called, sheet metal, and you lend it to a lady for 6 months. She can start making $20 a day with a food cart in a right location. Then she can move on in her life for 6 months, and that same food cart is given to another lady. And it goes on and on and on. Microloans are a fantastic invention.
And that $20 a day doesn't sound like much to us, but the average wage in that area is $1 a day. So $20 a day is phenomenal.
So you can sponsor a child if you're interested, sponsor a caregiver, donate to a project like the Feeding Project or Animal Projects. Or we also build different buildings. And right now in Nairobi, we have a building that we've just started to build. And we just bought the land in Nairobi. And we are hoping not just to help hundreds of women with microloans, but moving into helping thousands of women. And there's going to be an entire floor here for training women in microloans, and we're believing for a miracle. It's going to cost about 300,000 Canadian. The land is bought, and we were just there in May, and things are looking really good.
And that is the biggest project we will have ever done so far.
Yeah,
we're so excited to be able to help thousands.
It's just walking distance from the slum. So, and we mentioned if you want to go on a team, I'm leading a team. Also, Dan Peters from Olds is leading a team. It's going to have Dr. Johan, so we have a medical aspect, Dr. Johan from Olds, and Kinna is a nurse from Panoka. We have different people from Red Deer. So Central Alberta. Then February, there's a team going over, and I'll be leading another team in April, heading over there.
If you are interested, you can apply by going to our website, homeofhope.ca.
Thank you very much for allowing us this presentation. We'll be glad to answer any questions out of the back. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'll pass this over here. Thank you very much. Thank you both. Such incredible. And I was just thinking about like going on. Oh, yeah. I hate doing this stuff, but I just know that going on this trip was one of the most impactful moments of my life. I remember it was a group like this, but all kids, and I brought Twizzlers, and we were playing a game, and I made it a competition, and so kids can earn a Twizzler. And afterwards, I looked, and I could see them break into small pieces and sharing it with each person, so that every single person in that group got a Twizzler. I'm like, competition's over, everyone just grab a Twizzler. And just those moments, and then we had this dance party, and this one little girl, she was about 5 years old, and just dancing with her and finding out that she didn't have a dad, she didn't have anyone to have those moments with. And it just pulled on my heartstrings so much. And messaging Chris afterwards, I'm like, I don't know who that was, but I want to sponsor her family. I like figure out how we can make this happen. And then that Christmas, bought beds for her entire family, all new wardrobe, shoes, school. Like it was just like such an incredible thing to have that moment, because you can hear it, but actually experiencing it is so different. So for any of you that are thinking like, do I need to experience this? Like it probably was one of the most life-changing moments for me. So thank you. Yes. Back to texting in your questions. You can now text in your questions, and we are going to bring up our panelists. I've got a series of questions up here. So I will start with the very first one that I have. Which zones are already at capacity? So I know that we had mentioned, I believe it was Riverside Meadows, Morris Row, West Park. Are there any other areas that are at capacity currently?
So this is Debbie from the city as well to
Hi,
join me
Debbie.
for questions. So not Morris Row. It was supposed to be Michener Hill. Is
Michener
at
Hill.
capacity. Riverside Meadows. It looks like there's one spot available. And then West Park.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And then how can we know if areas are becoming almost at capacity? Like when does that cutoff take place? Because I know that you said 15%. Is there somewhere on the website that we can say, oh, only one house is available now? Or how does that work?
So the city has a web map. If you go to the city website, reddeer.ca, and online tools, you can launch the web map and you can check all of the different neighborhoods. You just put the secondary suite layer on and it will tell you all of the details, how many suites are allowed in the neighborhood, how many are remaining, and how many houses.
Awesome. And is that 15% cap ever going to lift? Is that expected to go higher, lower, somewhere in between?
So that is an interesting question.
Okay.
So when the new bylaw was passed earlier this year, council did consider lifting it to or increasing it to 20%. Because I actually didn't watch that council meeting. It's still on my to-do list, so I'm not familiar with all of the discussion that took place. But basically, it was a nod at this time. But given the housing crisis and the need for housing within Red Deer and the surrounding area, it is something that we know that may be considered by council in the future again.
And so for us as concerned citizens, how could we bring up our request to increase that capacity?
I feel like right now, council's taking a wait and see approach with the backyard suites being a new use. So waiting to see the uptake on it. And because many of our neighborhoods still have availability, they're going to hopefully push that density into the neighborhoods that have the availability.
Okay, excellent.
I'd just add to that. You are certainly always able to reach out to your council members, though, and let them know your thoughts, and they take those into consideration then as well. So
perfect
for the future.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Can someone have a garage suite and a basement suite on the same property?
No, you cannot. You have to have one or the other.
Excellent. And then why is the rule slightly different with Timberlands, Meadows?
So when Timberlands North neighborhood was designed or developed, it was developed with carriage homes or backyard suites in mind. So there were specific lots that were created for carriage homes or backyard suites, now that we call them. So when we were redoing the zoning bylaw, we didn't want to take any development potential away from owners from what they currently had. So we wanted to make sure that we were still allowing people to do what they could do yesterday, today. So that's why it's a little bit different.
Okay, oh, that's really good. What is the timeline between an approval for a garden suite and then the actual construction? If you get approved, do you have a certain timeline that you need to get this done by?
So a backyard suite is discretionary. So you would receive a notice if you're approved. There would be a 21-day appeal period where we would advertise it. And then you would have 1 year from the date that the permit's issued, which would be at the end of the 21-day appeal period. You'd have 1 year to commence construction.
Okay, that's awesome. Will it ever be on the table again to have duplexes with legal suites? There was a special program years ago. I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Long ago.
I'm not familiar with that program. As we know, housing is an issue in Canada. Red Deer also, we know that there is a desire to create more housing units. As we move through the zoning bylaw, future phases, we will continue to look at where improvements can be made to accommodate more housing. So it wasn't considered within phase 1, but we're not far enough along in the future phases to know what that will include.
Excellent. And then I believe Bryce was saying that this PowerPoint presentation is going to be made available. I think, Bryce, you're going to send that out. So when you registered, we probably asked your email address. If you gave a fake email address, that sucks. Better luck next time. But that will be ready. And then, Penny, what are some future, I know that you are always looking into the future. What do you foresee with this happening and coming out of a meeting like this where there's so many people that are interested in this?
I think that the people in this room and the people they talk to are going to be benefiting from this. And just to tag on to our last speaker, you know, we love a return on investment and ROI. So I did an ROI on the microloans for ladies. If I sponsor one lady and I give her a cart for $600, She will feed 1,000 meals because the average woman over there has about 7 children. So for $600, but it gets better because that $600 is rinse and repeat. When she's done, she's paid that loan back. She does it again. So I can give $600 and for the rest of eternity, children are eating. How's that for ROI?
Yeah, that's so good. So good. Well, thank you all very much. We really appreciate all of your insight and investing back into us. So again, another round of applause for all three of you. Thank you very much. And Bryce, I heard that you had something burning in your pocket.
Yes. So we had 2 winners. So the first person and the last person is how I randomized it. So we've got Amanda Dick, you win, and then Stephanie Schwartz.
$100. Well done. It pays to take action. So good job to both of you. Thank you very much. That is our evening. But like I promised, we have something special in store. Would anyone like to take any guess? That's all right. So if you follow Bryce on social media, which you should do right now, he's been talking a lot about real estate investing, all these great things. And he's actually developed a course. It's incredible. I believe that you've had 6 people sign up for your course already in the past 2 weeks. One individual already only took one section of the course, already has a house under contract that's going to be cash flowing for them $1,000 a month. So it is incredible. Bryce is doing a special thing where he is actually going to be recording a section of this course in the next few weeks here. And he is opening this up for 12 people to sit in on this course, absolutely free, no charge at all, which is incredible. I know that what Bryce is teaching has the capability to really change a lot of people's financial picture, whether it's just adding a little bit of extra spending money in your pocket. For myself, it was actually able to allow my wife to be a stay-at-home mom because we were able to fully replace her income from all the things that Bryce has actually taught me. So it's been an incredible relationship, and I know that what he has to offer can really change people's lives.